That motherfucker. Hey guys, what's going on? Digital Man here, back here with another video, and today's video is going to be my review of OMG Con 2017. OMG 2016 was my very first con, and I had an absolutely amazing time last year, so I decided to go back again this year. I wanted to do a review on it just like I did last year. So before we get into this review, I just wanted to state that the footage that I'm using at this very moment is not mine, nor is it from OMG 2017. It's just a random cosplay music video that I found on YouTube. I have this video because I know that you guys don't want to be looking at my face the entire video, and I will try to remember to leave a link to the original video in the description below. I will be using pics and videos of my own in this review. You should be able to tell which ones are mine. So without further delay, let's go ahead and talk about OMG 2017. Was it better than last year, worse, or around the same? Let's review this con. First off, I want to talk about the location. OMG Con 2017 took place in Owensboro, Kentucky at the Owensboro Convention Center. And it's just a really great area to have the con. Most major food chains and other local restaurants are within a good 10-minute drive of the con, so you should never have a problem finding somewhere to eat. The convention center is right next to the waterfront, which is a great place to take pictures. You should be looking at some that I took now, but I went to that area Friday evening and I was like the only person in cosplay. But luckily I did have my friends with me, so I didn't feel too awkward. There were two main hotels next to the convention center, the Holiday Inn and the Hampton Inn. I stayed in the Holiday last year, and this year I stayed in the Hampton. They both have their own pros and cons. Let's quickly go over the pros and cons of the Hampton first, the one I stayed in this year. The pros are that you get a free breakfast, it's closer to the waterfront park area, and it's closer to the con by like a good 3-minute walk compared to the Holiday. And that may not sound like a big deal, but if you're a person that goes from the con back to the room a whole lot, it definitely does make the difference. The cons of the Hampton Inn is that you have to pay for your internet, and it does cost more to stay there. Now let's go over the Holiday Inn, the one I stayed in last year. The pros are that it's cheaper to stay in, you have free internet access, and there's less people at the pool if you decide to go to the pool. The cons are that there is no free breakfast, and it is further away from the con, again by like a 3-minute walk, and it is further away from the waterfront park area if that's a place that interests you. If I had to choose between one or the other, I would have to go with the Holiday. I just had a better overall experience at the Holiday Inn than the Hampton. It's not particularly the Hampton's fault, it's just the way things are. So before I go on, let me go and explain what the heck OMG Con is for those that haven't figured it out yet. OMG Con is a small, mostly anime con mixed in with a bunch of other nerdy goodness. And now with that out the way, let's go ahead and talk about the convention center itself. It's just a great place to have the con. It's a really good layout and it's easy to navigate. My only real complaint about the convention center was that I think on Saturday they shut down the escalators going up, and it's just no fun walking up those stairs. Especially when that's where all the panels and other main events take place. So let's go ahead and start talking about the con itself. First off, once again, I am extremely impressed with the way they did the guidebook once again this year. Like, see, it's in a little game case here. You open it up. Here's your guidebook. I'm going to take it out, and pretty much everything you need to know is within this little guidebook here. Like within it, you got the guests, got the map of the convention center, tells you what's going on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and where it's happening, just a really great little guidebook here. Full color, everything, just let me show you something. Like it has pictures of the guests and what they look like and descriptions of them. So again, once again, extremely impressed with the way they do this. Of course, with this being a con, there were a lot of panels and other events going on around the con. And this year there were a lot of panels that I was actually interested in going to, and I actually did end up going to a handful of panels compared to last year. For example, I went to the memes panel, I went to the Peep Show, which was just a really good laugh. I went to an 18+ panel with Greg Ayers, which I was kind of skeptical about because, I just thought it was just going to be a lot of strong language with a lot of, sex jokes, and, if the sex jokes and, strong language isn't funny, then it really just doesn't land. But, or if any of his stories that were 18+, weren't funny, then they really wouldn't land. But I'm here to say that I did have a good time. Let's just say that Greg Ayers told us about some lightsabers, and he also talked about Jigglypuff, and how he had to wear panties over his head in the recording booth for one of his things. I also went to Little Karibo's 18+ panel, and I also went to a few more panels here and there. Since I started talking about Greg Ayers and Little Karibo, let's go ahead and just start talking about the guest list in general. The guest list was pretty good this year. One of the great things about the list was how diverse it was. I mean, you have cosplay guests, artists, writers, voice actors, video game related people. It was just very diverse, and another great thing about the lineup was that there was a good amount of guests this year, like over 10, which is great for a small con like this. One thing that I was disappointed about when it came to the guest autograph sessions was that none of them were selling stuff like this, like Erica Harlica was last year. Like, you know, what I would do is I would walk into where they were having the autograph sessions and kind of just walk past the table to see if they have anything right there that they're selling, you know, particularly stuff like this, but they weren't. I heard that Little Karibo was selling some merchandise, but, you know, I don't think they ever saw on a schedule when he was going to be at the autograph session place, so again, it's a little disappointing that none of them are selling stuff like this. Now, to be honest, I did have mixed feelings about the guest list before going to the con this year. I had two main concerns, the first one being that they had a handful of return guests from last year, and they accounted for about 40% of the overall guest list. This is a non-issue if this is going to be your first time at OMG, but if it isn't, it might be. My main concern is that with these return guests, or at least my main question is by having these return guests, are they taking the place of new guests that they could have gotten? Or if OMG didn't have these return guests, then the guest list would be down this many people. I don't know. My other main concern was that I just really wasn't that excited about seeing a lot of these guests. To be honest, I was only really excited about seeing one of them, and part of that does come from the fact that 40% of the guest list were repeats from last year. But let me restate that these were feelings that I had before going to the con. Once I was actually at the con, all these feelings that I had just kind of went away. Now that we talked about the guests, let's go ahead and talk about the game room. For those that haven't been to OMG, OMG Con has a really big game room, which is just as fun as it was last year. They have all sorts of games, from console games to Japanese arcade games. I definitely played more games this year than I did last year, and I just had a really good time. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention that OMG Con holds video game tournaments, from Mario Kart to Smash Bros to Tekken to Skullgirls. I didn't join any this year, nor did I join any tournaments last year, but it's good to know that there are signups if I ever wanted to join one. Now let's go ahead and talk about the people at OMG Con, from the staff to the other con goers. And I have to say, just like last year, everyone that I ran into was really nice and chill. Now let's go ahead and talk about the vending room, which I do have video of. Now I do have mixed feelings about the vending room this year, but let's go ahead and start with the good stuff. First off, they expanded the vending room so that things are more spread out and not so close together. This year, I actually spent a lot of time in the vending room compared to last year. Last year, I just kind of did a quick run through, but this year I spent at least a good 2 hours or more over the course of the 3 days that I was there. And on top of that, I actually did buy something to where last year I didn't. I'll go ahead and show off the stuff that I bought, which is just like 6 prints, and they're all from like the same artist. So I'm going to show them off. First off, I got the guy from the new Star Wars movie, what was it called? Rogue One. It's the blind guy, and on his arms, if you can't tell, and in the air up here, it says, "I am one with the Force, and the Force is one with me." I thought that was really cool. It's one of my favorite characters from that new movie. Next up, I picked up Battle Damaged Wolverine. You can see all the freaking arrows, and I think there's a katana in his back. Yeah, there's a freaking sword and an axe, and he's just smoking his cigar. I thought there's a really cool, good-looking print here. Next up is I got from, oh crap, there goes my phone. So getting back to it, I wanted to show off a print that I picked up that's based off one of my favorite heroines of all time, and that is Rosaria plus Vampire. Look at this. Let me move it over this way. This looks pretty good. The only thing I'm not really in love with is Skune over here. Like, that doesn't really look like Skune, like, at all. But maybe that's the way all the girls look and see him. I don't know. But again, I love this print. Next, I picked up this Gundam print, and I'm not the biggest Gundam fan, but man, this just looked too good to pass up. Like, look at this. This is beautiful. Next up is a print from one of my favorite animes of all time, which is Death Note. Look at that. Oh, wrong way again. Bam. The only thing I don't like is, let me see if I can get it going, is how L is like sticking out his tongue here to get his food. I don't really care for that too much, but you can't really tell that from far away, and it doesn't want to focus, so let's just move on. The last print I picked up was this mishmash one where everybody's fighting Saitama here. You know, you got the Colossal Titan, Superman, Goku, Hulk, and Wolverine. You got Saitama down here saying, "Finally." I feel like you could probably replace Wolverine with somebody else, but otherwise, this is a really good looking print. Let's go ahead and move on to the mixed feelings that I had about the vending room this year. First off, they didn't have the large manga vendor that they did last year. From what I remember, he had some great deals going on. The only reason why I didn't buy any manga from him last year was because I wasn't sure which volumes that I needed. So this year I came prepared to buy some manga, and I was very disappointed to find that they didn't really have any large manga vendors. The second thing about the vending room that was kind of, that kind of got to me was that I felt like around 80% of the stuff was definitely that I looked at was overpriced. But that's kind of to be expected when you go to a con or an event like this. But some of the things that I saw were still pretty surprising. For example, I remember walking to the Hot Topic one time and seeing this Link hat, the elf ears, and the wig for only around $3. While here at this con, I saw somebody selling the exact same thing, but sitting at like $32, like 10 times the price. They should be ashamed that they actually sold that to somebody. Something that I didn't do last year but I did this year was the photo shoot, and I have to say that I was extremely impressed with it. When I first got in line, the photographer was working with some Star Trek cosplayers, and I'm not gonna lie, the one in red was looking pretty fine. Okay, let me stop, let me get back to the point. But back to the point, he was working with these two, and if they didn't know what pose they wanted to do, he would come up with one for them. He seemed like he really knew what he was doing, and just watching him, work with these two, really got me hyped for doing my photos. And I was even more impressed when he was doing mine, because if I didn't know what pose to do, he would come up with one for me, and made me really feel good and made me feel like I looked really cool. You should be looking at the photos that he took of me now. I just can't praise how great that experience was. Now, I just wanted to quickly touch on the tabletop room, which is a room where they have a lot of board games and card games for you and a group of people to play. I didn't spend a lot of time in this room this year, but from what I did see, they still had a great selection of games for you and a group of people to play. You should have fun in there or find something that you like if you really try. The last thing that I want to talk about before wrapping up the review was the dance party / rave, whatever you want to call it. This year I went around an hour later than after it started, and I didn't really stay as long as I did last year, but even with that said, I have to say that this dance party was even better than last year. Not that last year's was bad, not at all. It's just that they really stepped it up this year. Every time I was like, I think I've had enough, I'll leave after this song, they would play another really good remix song that would make me go, okay, I'll leave after this song, and so on and so on. So let's go ahead and wrap up this review. So overall, I had another great time at OMG this year. On a technical level, it was even better than last year. There were more panels that I was interested in, and I actually went to a lot more panels. I played more games in the game room this year. I spent a lot more time in the vending room and actually bought stuff. The dance party was even better. I had a great experience with the photo shoot, etc, etc. There were a few bumps here and there, but nothing that really took away from my good time. Once again, on a technical level, OMG Con was even better this year than last year. But on a more personal level, I would have to go with last year, and that is because last year was my very first time at a con ever. So going again this year, that sense of magic and adventure just wasn't there, like learning the layout of the convention, seeing how big the game room is for the very first time, seeing all these people cosplaying coming together in one place for the very first time, going to all these panels and just going to the dance party for the first time, just all that sense of magic and wonder just wasn't there like it was last year. And I'm probably not going to get that feeling again until I go to a new con that's at least mid-size, because again, OMG is considered a small con. But again, let me make it clear that I'm not holding these personal feelings against OMG, not at all. Which is why I said, technically, OMG is better this year than it was last year, and I really did have a good time. So with that said, let me go ahead and give you guys my score. So last year I gave OMG a 9.5 out of 10. And I think I was kind of, the reason why I gave it such a high score was because, again, it was my first and only con I've ever been to, and I was kind of going off the high of it being my very first con. So this time around, I think I'm going to be a little bit more stern with my score, and I'm going to be giving OMG 2017 another 9.5 out of 10. Once again, I had an absolute terrific time at OMG, and again, it is technically better than it was last year, so they are stepping it up. I still feel that OMG is still a great first con to go to if you've never been one, and one that you should definitely check out if it's within, I say, a good 3 hours. Any more than that might be pushing it a little bit. So with that said, if you guys like this video, like the video, and if you like me, subscribe to me. And as always, this is DDG the Man, and I'll catch y'all next time.
お前はもう死んでいる。何？